Hello everyone, Toon World here. Hopefully you're all having a wonderful day whenever it is you are watching this video. Today, we're going to be tackling my take on Therion P.U.N.K post Photon Hypernova in the month of March 2023. Now, if you've been keeping up with any P.U.N.K related news, you'll have noticed that this particular P.U.N.K variant has actually been doing well, not only on DB ladder and in DB related tournaments, but has also been doing well in regionals both in the US and in Europe, where it's been taking quite a few top cut slots. So really, it has proven itself in terms of power, and I do think it is a very viable option in the current format. It's not going to be the best deck since that title is reserved for Kashtira and Branded. Nonetheless, it is definitely a great low tier and or rogue option to play at any event you go to. That is why today I'm happy to share with all of you this particular deck profile. You're gonna see that my list isn't all that different from other Therion P.U.N.K players. Nonetheless, hopefully you might be able to learn something in the case I offer any information that you haven't found already, as that is the end goal of this channel really, to teach all of you about P.U.N.K and to share my enthusiasm with the deck with all of you viewers. This all out of the way, remember to like and subscribe. I do appreciate it as it does help the channel grow. Otherwise, I will get on with the deck profile. So, the first topic of today's video is of course the main deck monsters. We're first going to go through the P.U.N.K names, then the Therion names, then the hand traps. So, starting with the P.U.N.K names themselves, this is fairly standard for really any P.U.N.K variant at this point. The 3 Ogre Dance, the 3 Foxy Tune, the 3 Zayamin, those are all your starters. You do not want to play any less than 3 of those. Even in this list where, as I will describe later, you do prioritize the Dio Belantis over your normal P.U.N.K play, that is Dragon Drive. You still need to see these cards as soon as possible nonetheless. The 2 Deer Note, also relatively similar to everyone else's list, where you need the first copy for your combo and then you need a second copy for any follow-up plays. 3 is rather unnecessary despite me having played that in the past. So you can try out 3 if you'd like, but I think 2 is perfectly fine as is. The 1-ofs here, Shirakusai, the Wagon, the Madam Spider, these are also fairly standard. I'm not trying to come off as pretentious in saying that you should know that these are standard, but if you've seen P.U.N.K lists, you'll notice that these are fairly common ratios. The 1 Wagon and the 1 Madam Spider are here to search your 1-of field spell and your 1-of trap. In this case, as you will see, it is Dangerous Gabu. And then the Shirakusai is here to do your fusion play through Rising Tarp. You could theoretically play more than 1 copy of Shirakusai. I know some people do switch between 1 and 2, though for this particular variant where, again, as I had mentioned earlier, you're trying to prioritize the Therion line rather than your normal P.U.N.K line where you draw cards, you do not usually need the second name. Since by the time you get to your Therion package, you're doing well off of those cards, at least in my opinion, versus the P.U.N.K cards themselves. So, those are the P.U.N.K names, the Therion names themselves. So, we're playing one of each of these: Bull, Duke, Empress, Lily, Regulus. Bull is great because you're level 7, it gives you access to Baron, which we are theoretically playing. You'll see that I only have a proxy right now. So it's great for that. It can also summon itself, targeting the Deer Note, since Deer Note is a warrior. And finally, the particular effect it provides, that you can pop cards on the field, that does come up relatively frequently as a means to remove cards on the field. So overall, it's a very solid option. You could play the Aqua Therion. I do want to try it out because the fact that the bounce effect it has is a quick effect means that you could theoretically have Regulus and the Aqua Therion set up as 2 disruptions. Nonetheless, I had opted out of it just because I felt that it was harder to summon at times, just because with Bull you have your Deer Note and your Therion cards to get there. Whereas with the Aqua Therion, you would have to use a Therion name engrave, which I guess isn't too hard since, again, Debelantis Dumboria, but I felt like Bull was a little bit more accessible. and thus easier to make. I will test the Aqua Therion nonetheless down the line. Duke is in here. All your punk names are psychics, or all the level 3 punk names are psychics, so you can summon that easily. And the protection from card destruction is nice for this particular format where a lot of people are playing board breakers. Some people are playing like Dark Hole Raigeki, so being able to protect your Regulus and not have to use a negate on the, like use Regulus as negate to stop that particular board breaker is nice. Empress is in here just so that you can make rank 8s. Borea is self-explanatory, hopefully you're familiar with the Therion package. Basically, you dump it off of the Debulantis and then you can equip it, and then it lets you search your Therion field spell, which we are playing. So gotta play at least 1 copy. You could play 2, but I felt that I wasn't seeing it too often in hand, which would otherwise void the reason to summon Debulantis. So I felt like 1 was fine. Finally, our, of course, favorite Therion card, or at least, you know, one of my favorites, Regulus, because it is the Omni Negate. Not much to say about why we're only playing 1 copy of that. Finally, for the hand traps, again, I did briefly mention that I am playing Imperm that is relegated to the spells and traps in this particular deck profile. We are playing 3 Gamma, the driver, of course, for the Gamma, 1 Rabbit, and 3 Ash. So the Gamma, if you saw my Gold Pride Punk list, I had said Nibiru was pretty strong in this format. However, as the format has developed, we are seeing a lot of anti-Nibiru tech. Also, some lists can really play through Nibiru or set up negates that precede Nibiru's 5 summon requirement. So I felt like it wasn't that good to have in. Also, it was a terrible card to go and draw like off of your 6th card for going second, whereas Gamma had that versatility in that it can stop your opponent's monsters, of course, but also it could be used as a going second option to potentially stop a hand trap or like a standby phase like monster negate or something. I don't have any good examples right now, but I think it was a solid enough card to put in instead of the Nibiru. Ghost Ogre is in here so that you can search it off of the Dragon Drive if you ever go into that line. And of course, it is useful against some of the format. The most notable is, or at least in my opinion, is the Kashtira Birth, which this can hit and stop your opponent from reviving Kashtira names. 3 Ash Blossom, definitely the MVP hand trap of this format. Being able to stop Branded Fusion, being able to stop like almost every single cash card that I can think of, you know, the E-Tally, their field spell, Unicorn, Fenrir, hits a lot of the sort of middle tier decks that are in the format. The only thing I can think of right now is like Sprite. Tier people are still coping with that. And then of course it is a great card against Rogue. So these are the main deck monsters. And if you have any comments or questions about them, feel free to let me know down below. I am always open to feedback. Otherwise, we're going to get to the spells and traps. The spells and traps that you see here, most of them are fairly straightforward. I think the only thing that might be interesting for some of you to see is the 2 Disc Coliseum, which I will get to. To go in order, the 3 E-Tally, this is another great starter for Punk on top of your already 3 Ogre Dance, 3 Foxy Tune, and 3 Zaymin. You definitely have to play this card as it is a great card in Punk. No further comments there. The Extreme Session, we're playing 1 copy for Wagon since we are playing Wagon, and I do like having the option of going for the normal Punk line that I keep alluding to of drawing 2 cards. Sometimes you are able to do that, so I think having that particular option in here is nice. Also, worst case scenario, there are some cases where you might need this as an extender, as you can always use the banish effect, summon from hand, and then make plays based off of that. The Endless Engine Gyro system. So I'm playing 1 copy. I know some people are playing 3 copies. I don't quite like the logic behind that. I do understand that you can dump Therion names and then summon Therion names that you have in hand relatively quickly versus your usual combo. Nonetheless, I don't feel like that is necessary, since usually that, like, you're basically going neg 1 like immediately. Like, think about this going first, right? You dump a card, then you have 4 cards in hand. Usually you already have your Punk engine, so you don't really need to use the Endless Aggro system. Or sorry, our Gyro system. So then it kind of just loses you advantage immediately. I know it does give you back resources later on, but I think 1 is suitable enough. And so that's why we're playing 1. It's a great endless engine, excuse the pun, but yeah, basically you should play 1 so that you can dump it off the field spell, and it does give you near infinite recursion of your Therion names so that you can grind in those longer games that you play. The 3 Book of Eclipse, I think this is a nice option against Kashtira. I have found that this card does struggle relative to Branded because you can still fusion with face down monsters, so going first, this card feels kind of bad to use against them, and then going second, like, it does offer you some utility, but then they do usually have, say, Expulsion set up, and then they can dump the new Branded fusion that summons Alabast back from grave, so really it doesn't help remedy your situation against Branded a lot, and since this deck can't Reticle against Branded, I might suggest you could change this out for something else if you really want to, but otherwise it does perform fine since Kashtira is also dominant, and it does work against a lot of the mid-tier and or low-tier decks. The 2 Disc Coliseum, I know a lot of people only play 1. I'm playing 2 just because I think the second card, or the second copy does come up a lot, where sometimes you go through your first copy already during your first turn, and then you want a second copy to search a Therion name, since of course Borea cannot directly search Therion names, it has to go through a spell and trap. So playing 2 lets you do that, where you might have regular setup, turn 1, you might still have Borea equipped to it on subsequent turns, and in order to go for a game, you need to search another Therion name, so then you can use Regulus, send a card from hand, from field, search another Disc Coliseum, and then search your Therion name. 3 Imperm, great hand trap this format, and then the 1 Gabu, we're not playing Surprise because even though I have historically been a fan of Surprise, I think for this particular list, where you won't always be able to guarantee a punk name on field, the Gabu is better, as yeah, you do not require a punk name to activate. Also, I have found that effect negation is somewhat stronger than I had anticipated this format, versus my previous deck profile where I had tutored Surprise to be better, so that's why it isn't here now. This is the Spells and Traps, and we're now going to talk about the extra deck. Alright, so here we have the extra deck. And rather than bouncing around, I'm just going to go through each row top to bottom. So Rising Carp, it is in here for the Shirakusai. Not much to say about that. It's just a nice option to make, and it does help you activate the Drageye, which I will get to later. My choice of rank 8s for this deck, since Therions are level 8s, you make a lot of rank 8s at times. I have the Dingrisu, the Hope Harbinger, and Sargas. Sargas is self-explanatory. This is the reason why Therion Punk is good now, since it does enable you to access your Therion package a lot easier than Chaos Ruler would have. So, gotta play that. The Dingrisu and Hope Harbinger. So, some people are playing Photon Lord, some people are playing Felgrand. There are other options that I'm not mentioning, like Lancelot and, let's say, Xenophon, the Sky Prison. I chose Hope Harbinger because I liked it into Kashtira and Branded. Being able to hit a lot of the fusion spells in Branded is nice. Also, being able to hit most of the Kashtira spells they play is also a good feeling. So, Felgrand and Photon Lord, those are still good options, though I didn't have access to them, and also I don't feel like the Monster Negate is all that necessary, especially into this format where if you're going first, you want to set up a negate. This helps deal with some of the board breakers better than the Monster Negate would. The Dingrisu, I didn't want to have too many rank 8 options that were essentially for negation only. I wanted something to provide me some flexibility in terms of removal as well as the protection effect that Dingrisu offers. So that's why I included it in this list. The other XYZs, Zeus, it's in here because you can usually make it easily. The best example is making it off of the Dingrisu. And then Melee of the Trees, I actually have this in here. I do think it is necessary for Punk Therion just because it is an alternative way to dump your Borea in the case that Deobalantis cannot. Also, there are situations where you have enough cards in hand to, or you can afford to go for your Punk line where you draw 2 cards after resolving Dragon Drive and Madam Spider. Then you can overlay into Melier, and then you can go through your Therion package, even if you don't make the Sargas. So I do think having that in is a nice option, as it does open up more combo lines in the list. Though, again, as I always say, you can always let me know in the comments below if you disagree and or have any feedback on the choice. The 3 link monsters here, Asa, Unicorn, Access Code Talker. So Asa is my choice of Charmer and Link 2, mainly because you can summon back opponents' copies of Fenrir, which is nice into cache. That's mostly it. I might be overlooking certain things like maybe Traptrix, Naturia, stuff like that do play Earth monsters, but my main point of contention for including this was the Kashira cards. Unicorn and Access Code, that's just your Link climb up. Unicorn obviously offers a nice bounce, and then Access Code is great removal. The Synchro monsters here, Deeplantis, absolutely necessary for this list. It is the reason why Punk Therion works so well now. You dump your plant name, and then, yeah, you can overlay this, and whatever Punk name you summon back off of the Deer Note in a Sargas, go into your Therion line, and bam, you have a good board. So I cannot say too much about the other effect it has. I think it was the tuner effect, but for the most part, you're usually using this for the dump as Chaos Ruler would have done, except less reliably. Dragon Drive and Drageye, I'm skipping over the Chenying for now. Dragon Drive and Drageye, you play one Dragon Drive for obvious reasons. This is Punk, you want to have options to summon this if need be, and if you go for the normal Punk line anytime during your combo, this is important for triggering your subsequent draws off of Extreme Session. The Drageye is my choice of like level 8 Synchro Flex. I know the vast majority of people are playing the Drake Berserker, but I like Drageye as I felt, again, like this deck did have pretty sufficient ways to deal with monsters, whereas if you were to go into, say, Labyrinth, or another back row heavy deck, you don't have as many tools, again, only in my opinion. So Drageye was nice, as if you ever go for the Rising Carp line, you can then set this up, and this eats up a lot of trap cards from your opponent. The Chenying, so I want to make this very clear, but the Chenying is actually a proxy for Baron. I do not think that Chenying is any better than Baron is in this list. I do think Baron is the better option, but I did not have a copy in time for this video, so I chose the Chenying instead, since, you know, for quote-unquote budget players, since this list, it's not really budget, but like if you want to save some money, you could play Chenying instead. It is nice, there are some ways to trigger it, but for the most part, yeah, this is supposed to be Baron. Finally, Amazing Dragon and Psychic and Punisher. Gotta play these. Psychic and Punisher is, of course, a great boss monster, can win games against certain decks that are not prepared for it. And then Amazing Dragon is in here for multiple reasons. You're going first play if you ever set up Share Kusai plus a level 8 Synchro or level 8 body, and then for subsequent turns where you need to go for game. So this does wrap up the extra deck. If you were curious about a side deck, I can talk about it below, but I do not have one in this video, unlike my Gold Pride Punk deck profile, since I haven't tested with this enough to provide a suitable side deck for the format. Though you could always just put in the usual stuff like back removal, maybe D-Barrier, some trap cards, Nibiru, stuff like that. So hopefully that makes sense, and we'll get on with the concluding remarks. Alright, so concluding remarks. I don't really have too much to say here. I had a lot more to say for the Gold Pride Punk variant because it didn't have too much of a presence in the format, so there was more room to convince you all that the deck was good. However, with Punk Therion, as I had stated at the start of the video, it has been performing well online and in-person tournaments, so I don't really need to speak towards its viability. If you have the resources to build a deck, you know, it can be a little expensive here and there. I would definitely recommend it, as it is not only fun, but also fairly strong, again, as a low-tiered deck. I can't say it's, you know, a top-tier deck, though maybe I am wrong. But yeah, if you have the resources, definitely a fun deck to play. Otherwise, yeah, you can always play it online, play it on Master Duel, albeit without the Sargas and the Belantis. I'm just trying to warm up with those of you that might not be able to access the Therion package at the moment. So regardless, I'm happy to see where this deck goes. This list is fairly solid. I will work to improve it since there are certain parts of it that I'm not necessarily happy with. Also, given that I need more games on the list, I might encounter certain things that didn't work as well as I had thought in theory. So when we get there, we'll get there. I might post some updates. But otherwise, thank you for watching this P.U.N.K Therion deck profile from yours truly, Toon World. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. If you have any feedback for the video, whether it be any deck choices or something more meta like the structure of the video itself, please let me know in the comments below. As you always know, I try to talk with all of you in the comments when I can. Remember to like and subscribe, I do appreciate it. Otherwise, have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will cue the outro.